This bill cannot do that. There is no way someone can legally sign away their rights of privacy under the Constitution. That's a canard. You can't do it. We will have to, if that person says, I don't want you in here, we will have to go and get a search warrant to make a simple inspection. That is after the fact. Public health is about preventing illness. If we are down to the point of having to do an investigation, we have already failed the public. We have already failed the taxpayers. That is not what we are supposed to be about. We are supposed to be about keeping businesses open safely. We are not supposed to be in the business of just closing people down. As you'll hear from people on both sides, you already heard some of it, there are people who have opened successful cottage businesses, if you will, in their home, not in their home kitchen, but in an adjacent structure or in a garage or something like this. I've been doing this job for 30 years, and I have got a lot of people that have started up. Yes, there is some cost involved. There is some effort. Sometimes people will run into some difficulties for whatever reasons in individual cases. But it can be done. We've started up a number of them. I've got people from rural counties where I've worked. I've got people from urban counties where I've worked. I've worked in another state. We've got exactly the same situations and problems there. It can be done under the current rules and regulations. Another problem that's come up is the term potentially hazardous foods. This is a term that's actually going away in the rules and regulations because as we are learning more and more about food science, food safety, bacteriology, virology, we're finding out that there are problems with just saying potentially hazardous foods. It is a challenge for commercial operators to determine what potentially hazardous foods are. I cannot expect a homeowner and a minor cottage industry person to be able to take an accurate pH reading of about 1/8 of an inch of interface between what is a safe pie filling and a safe crust. But when you put them together, they form a layer that is not safe. This has been shown. We have a problem with this. As far as foodborne illnesses and trying to pin them down to homemade foods, I'm not going to stand and say do it. In the years of doing this, I have investigated or been involved with the investigation of hundreds of foodborne illnesses. In all those years, I have probably managed to nail down maybe 5, possibly 6 that we could confirm. So when you look at those statistics from like the CDC and places like this, and they talk about outbreaks and confirmed things, realize that is sometimes thought to be between 1 and 100th of what is actually out there. We can't do it. So trying to compare those kind of things is a real problem. And the home industry is not going to be any better, any worse in those kind of respects. We're just going to have a lot more difficulty with it. All these big outbreaks we've had recently, like the big salmonella outbreaks, these do not represent new cases. This is not something new. The numbers of salmonella cases are not going up. That is, our technology is allowing us to link up what we thought were individual cases around the country in different places. We are now finding out that they are related. We're able to track these things back.
Members, do you have any questions?
You got me.
Unfortunately, you were good though.
One thing left. We keep talking about businesses with costs, regulations, competition. None of that makes any difference. I'm sorry. Those things have to be secondary in any deliberations you make about this bill. This is about people's lives. Public health has to come first. Competition's great. Business is great. But if it's at the risk of people's lives, you cannot do that. Putting people into this business is not going to make anything especially great. It's not going to make anything especially worse. There's good and there's bad to it. But as Pat said earlier, this is an underfunded mandate. We kill between 5,000 and 9,000 people a year in this country with unsafe food. And that's with the regulatory structure we have now. Adding another layer to it without funding it, we can't do it. It's going to be worse.
Members, are there any questions of Mr. Jefferson? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Chair calls Kelly Masters, representing herself, homemaker. Welcome, Ms. Masters.
My name is Kelly. Oh, okay. My name is Kelly Masters. I live in Cedar Park. I'm a stay-home mom. I have 3 children. The story of how I began cake decorating is similar to the stories of many other people that you'll see here today. A family member asked me to make her groom's cake, and I didn't want to embarrass myself or embarrass her at her wedding, so I started taking lessons and making practice cakes. Take your practice cakes somewhere, and it's like magic. People say, "Oh, you do cakes," and your phone starts ringing. And just like that, you have a home cake business. It happens without much forethought or planning sometimes. Well, eventually I found out that it's not legal to do that in your home in Texas, so I wanted to do it the right way. So I made an arrangement with a local restaurant to use their kitchen, but that arrangement didn't last very long because their standards of cleanliness were not anywhere close to mine. I could not continue to use their kitchen and sell food that I prepared there. So I found a different commercial kitchen that I could rent hourly. It was $15 an hour, but I have young children, and I really only wanted to make 1 or 2 cakes a week, and I could not make up in volume for the hourly rental. Between the ingredients and the supplies and the hourly rental, I was barely breaking even. My church doesn't have a licensed commercial kitchen that I could use. I couldn't afford to build a second kitchen in my home, even if my homeowners association would allow it, which they never would. I live in the suburbs, so I gave up my cake business. I did not give up my love of cake decorating, though, and I became very involved in the online world of cake decorating, and I made lots of friends across the country. And many of these friends live in states where it is legal to have a home cake business. And it breaks your heart when you see something that is very, very easy for people in North Carolina or Ohio or Massachusetts, but is completely denied where you live, just based on the state that you live in. So I took it upon myself to investigate the states that have these cottage food laws. I read their rules. I learned that in most cases they place reasonable restrictions on these home kitchens, such as no pets in the home, no carpet in the kitchen. Sometimes they require a separate refrigerator for the foods that you use in the business, sometimes a separate storage cabinet. Most of them restrict the bakers to selling non-potentially hazardous foods like cake, cookies, or brownies. These are things you don't need to keep in the refrigerator, the kind of things you would buy at a PTA bake sale. In the last few months, I had the opportunity to speak with knowledgeable regulators in 7 states with cottage food laws, and I asked them all the same questions. Do you get a lot of complaints of foodborne illnesses or uncleanliness in the home bakeries? And their answer was unanimous. Everyone said very few, if any. One regulator went so far as to tell me she had never received a complaint about home bakery. These conversations confirmed for me what I already knew in my heart. Homemade cakes and cookies don't make people sick. House Bill 3282 would be wonderful for people like me who do not want to run a bakery, but would like to sell a few cakes a month to supplement their family's income. The current rules make it impossible to operate a food business on a small scale. It would also help people who would like to start a cake business but have no startup capital. The regulators in the other states told me there have been many success stories of people who started in their home but then had to move on to a larger facility. And that's the American dream. You can't do very much in a home kitchen. They're not set up like a bakery. You really are limited to a certain amount of production before you would have to say it's taking over and it's time to move on to something bigger. In today's economy, more people than ever are searching for ways to earn extra money from home. Many people here today have been affected by layoffs and downsizing, shrinking retirement savings. House Bill 3282 would give homemakers, working moms, and retirees the tools to help themselves. Almost everybody knows a cake lady, somebody who makes beautiful and delicious birthday or wedding cakes in their home kitchen. Please give the cake ladies a Texas a way to operate a legal tax-paying business, whether they want to start small and stay small, or start small but dream big.
Yes, Representative Davis.
Yes, so just a quick question now.
Yes.
Do you guys sell to any bakeries, like a subcontractor? Do they ever contract you guys?
I've never been contacted about that. My business was always word-of-mouth referrals. Someone was at a baby shower and saw my cake and loved it and wanted it for their baby shower.
Okay, there's some bakeries that say they got overloaded or they need some help. Do they subcontract out to you guys to?
Not with the current language of the bill.
Okay.
If this were law, it states that it's only to consumers.
But if it was only to consumers, you couldn't be a subcontractor.
No, you can't sell it you can't sell your home-produced goods to another food establishment.
Okay.
Members, Chairman Darrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Thank you, Ms. Masters, for your testimony. When you did the research in the other states that had provisions for these cottage bakeries and stuff, you mentioned a few of those things. Was there anything in there that was particularly cost prohibitive in terms of complying with the things that the health department required? You mentioned a few of them.
Most of the requirements are very reasonable, like I said. A separate storage cabinet, a separate refrigerator, which, is reasonable. The thing that people have the most problem with is no pets in the home. A lot of people would prefer not to give up their pets at the expense of their business, but it is a very common requirement in other states.
And I believe I heard you say that there was no particular problem with foodborne illness or anything that could be related to the cottage bakeries.
In fact, I would say the regulators I talked with reacted with surprise when I asked the question. Immediately they said, "Oh no." I will tell you, they also unanimously said the biggest problem with their cottage food operations is the annual inspection, because so many people who are operating cottage food industries do it as a supplemental income. They have day jobs, and they are not in the home from 8 to 5, which is when the health department inspectors would want to conduct the surprise inspection. And so it would often require multiple trips out to the home by the inspector to try and catch someone at home. The way this bill is written, it doesn't require the annual inspection.
This bill has a provision in it that says that an individual must successfully complete a basic food safety education or training program for food handlers accredited by the department under Chapter 438. Did you find a similar provision in some of the other states that some sort of extra education was required to do this?
Some. It's not common throughout them, but there are a few states that require it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Best.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, any other questions? Thank you for coming today. Chair calls Steve Mannion, owner, director